So running propaganda to hide its war crime and crimes against humanity has always been a well-established strategy for the rogue Zionist regime of Israel. This has been their strategy since 1982, when they butchered innocent men, women, children and babies in Sabra and Shatila refugee camps. You want to learn more? I suggest you watch the video of that reporting from 1982 on my Telegram channel. I've just uploaded that video there. You can see the details of my Telegram channel here on the screen. If you see the likes of the BBC and other prominent Western media outlets, including the New York Times, liberals' favorites, if you see these media outlets and brands pushing the genocidal propaganda of war criminal Netanyahu, this is because Israeli terrorists and their Western backers have now completed their goal of controlling the media. That's the reality. What they started in 1982, they have perfected that now. The media over the world, all around the world, is in their firm grip. That's the reality. That's the truth. That's why today's video is very, very important. Because this video is about a man, one man, who is single-handedly giving these Western forces and their media allies sleepless nights. He is Sayyid Mohammad Marandi. Marandi is currently a professor of English literature at Tehran University, but is an eloquent speaker with an American accent. That's because he was born in Richmond, America. The reason why he speaks so well on the current crisis is because he truly understands the geopolitics of the region. His father was a minister in the Iranian government, and he himself has served as an advisor on Iran's nuclear program. Some of his recent interviews have caused quite a stir, and I really mean it, in the Western media and among Zionist groups. His interview with BBC Radio 4's Mishal Hussain on this Tuesday, made Zionists so angry that they formally complained to the BBC. You know what had made these Zionist forces in the UK so angry? The fact that Marandi simply spoke the truth and referred to Israel as a genocidal regime.
Let's get the view of Sayyid Mohammad Marandi. He's Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran, and he advised the Iranian government during its nuclear negotiations in Vienna in 2015. Good morning, Professor Marandi.
Good morning.
How do you think that the Iranian government will respond to this latest dimension of the war in Lebanon?
Well, I think it's quite clear. Iran has been telling the world that this is a genocidal regime. It's been carrying out a genocide in Gaza for a year with full Western support. The bunker busters that we've been seeing falling over homes and apartment buildings in Beirut over the last couple of days, they all come from the West, and the West will justify whatever crimes the Israeli regime carries out. So people in this region, Iranians, everyone has to come to this full recognition that if you're going to have peace and security, you're on your own. The West will side with the genocide. I know a husband and wife that were slaughtered with their small child in their home. The whole apartment block came down. Everyone inside died.
In Beirut, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, in southern Beirut.
Of course, what Israel says it's doing is that it is targeting Hamas and it's also targeting Hezbollah, two groups with which it has been essentially at war in one way or another for a long time. But let me go back to my question to you, which was, how do you think the Iranian government will respond to the ground offensive?
Well, first of all, the Israeli regime will say what it says, and the Western media will justify it. The Western media will say these are Hezbollah strongholds. Whenever one hears the word stronghold or Hezbollah sites in Beirut, you can tell it's Israeli propaganda. These are homes. These are neighborhoods. They have destroyed parts of southern Beirut, like a city like London. It's like bombing cities, and it's like saying in 7/7. They bombed British regime stronghold. How would that sound to people in the UK? It's utterly outrageous. But the Iranians will definitely do whatever it takes to make sure that the Israeli regime fails in its genocide in Gaza and its genocidal airstrikes in Lebanon or in its ground invasion of the country.
I mean, what else would you call this Israeli regime? These satanic forces are so used to controlling the narrative and never being made to pay for their war crimes that they get perturbed when someone dares to describe them as who they are. Such is the clout over the BBC that they even managed to get a partial apology from the BBC. At least if you go by the claim of this Jewish website. But this hasn't deterred Marandi. He appeared on Sky News after Iran fired over 180 ballistic missiles and hit key Israeli military targets. What made this interview special was Marandi's presence of mind and exposing the biases of Western journalists. The content of this interview has gone viral, by the way, on social media, like the content of his other interviews in recent days. He addressed them as racist. He addressed these Western journalists as racists for supporting the racist and genocidal regime of Israel. I mean, how else is one expected to react when you refuse to criticize Israel even after it has slaughtered tens of thousands of innocent men, women, children and babies and attacked two sovereign nations? The world is silent, the media is silent. How else do you expect a sane journalist or sane expert or a scholar to react?
Well, Professor Mohammad Marandi from the University of Tehran joins us now. Thank you very much for being with us, Professor. I just wonder, first of all, what has Iran achieved by this attack on Israel? Very few of the missiles got through. It, in effect, failed. Many people are calling it a humiliation for Iran.
I think that's a lot of wishful thinking on behalf of you and your colleagues at Sky News. It was a massive blow to the Israeli regime. And the history of this conflict doesn't go back to last year. It is 76 years of ethno-supremacism, ethnic cleansing, and this is a racist regime that you support. What the problem is that you cannot recognize that the difference between you and us is that you support racism and racial hierarchy, and we reject it. And the Israeli regime, if they dare strike back at Iran, we will hit them much harder next time. We will beat them into submission.
Well, they will strike back, won't they? No sovereign country can put up with having 180 ballistic missiles fired at them, so they will hit back, they will hit hard, and they could well hit your nuclear facilities, your oil production installations. They could cause Iran serious damage.
Listen, instead of the rhetoric, be real, because you're misleading your own people. Iran has countless underground missile sites with hundreds of thousands of missiles across the country. They were made after the US invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan to deal with a potential war with the United States. So this puny regime, it is not a state, it is a colony. It is a racist, ethno-supremacist colony which the people call themselves the chosen people. Unlike you, we do not believe in chosen people.
He then appeared on Channel 4 and decided to give grief to Krishnan Gurumurthy. Although I think Krishnan is a good guy. And so is his sister Geeta Gurumurthy, who I have worked with in the BBC in the past. But Marandi took a dim view of Krishnan addressing the government of Iran as an Iranian regime. To be fair to Krishnan, he did concede and carried on with his interview. But this also highlighted Marandi's oratory skills.
Now, in Beirut now is the Iranian academic Mohammad Marandi, who is normally based in Tehran and is close to the Iranian regime. What was the point of today's attack? Is that the beginning of a wider attack and a longer war, or is that it? The point is made. That's the end of it.
First, I want to ask you a question. Did you call the person from Israel close to the Israeli regime, or was that the Republic Israel? Is it just I who am who represent the regime, or I'm close to a regime? What's a regime? It's Islamic Republic
I'm
of
happy
Iran.
if it means we can carry on with the
It's
conversation.
Islamic,
I'm
it
happy
is
to say the
Iran.
government rather than the regime.
Yeah,
Let's not get hung up on that.
Respect
I mean, there
show
are
respect
missiles
for
being
my-
traded tonight, and it's
Yeah, so show respect for my country.
and I'm very happy to introduce you as somebody who is close to the Iranian government rather than the regime. Now let's talk about
I
the
am
substance.
proud to be
Do you think this is
associated
the
with
beginning
the
or the
Islamic
end?
Republic of Iran, but it's not a regime. It's the Islamic Republic of Iran. And it is the side, as I said to you last night, that is defending the Palestinian people, where your criminal government is helping the Israeli regime slaughter and kill women and children for a whole year. And this goes way beyond last year. So let's don't use this sort of terminology.
Marandi then also appeared on BBC TV this week to speak to Geeta and established his authority by exposing the Zionists and their dirty design once again.
Well, Mohammad Marandi is Professor of English Literature and Orientalism at the University of Tehran and joins us now. Thank you for being with us. I know you're in Beirut. You will have heard the condemnation from the US and from the British Prime Minister. What is the chance now of a de-escalation in the region?
It depends on the Israeli regime. The Israeli regime has been carrying out a genocide in Gaza. It has been carrying out genocidal attacks in Lebanon with the full support of the British government, the American government, and they are just as guilty of these war crimes as is Netanyahu. And when the Israeli regime assassinated a foreign official in Iran, the political leader of Hamas, when the Israelis assassinated him at the UN Security Council, the British refused to allow a condemnation. So effectively, the British, the Americans, the French supported the airstrike on Iran's embassy. They supported the assassination of a foreign leader, diplomat in Iran. Well, under those circumstances, they are the ones who are guilty of bringing about escalation. They continue to feed the Israeli regime with bunker busters to slaughter people here in Beirut, and then they condemn Iran. I think people should be very careful about what's happening. One of your guests said that the Iranian attacks didn't cause any damage. I'm glad to know that he knows all the results of the airstrikes before the Israelis know about them. But the fact is that this is the tip of the iceberg. Iran has many underground cities that they made after the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan by the Americans to defend the country against a possible invasion. Iran has hundreds of thousands of missiles. If they want to go after the Israeli regime, they'll destroy it.
Marandi has also successfully demonstrated that the West must not take Iran's military might lightly. He's been highlighting how Iran has established its network of missiles across the country with underground stockpiles in hundreds of thousands. I made a video on the damage caused by Iran's missile attack on Israel yesterday. You can watch that here. If Marandi is to be believed, then it's not good news for Israel and the global economy. You saw what Houthi did this week. Even after being bombed by the UK, the US and now Israel, they have destroyed another UK oil tanker in the Red Sea. I have uploaded these extraordinary videos on my Telegram channel. Let's hope that Western media continues to invite Marandi despite having received a battering in recent days. From journalistic point of view, he is sheer joy to watch. That's it from me. Thank you very much for your support of this platform on buymecoffee.com and Patreon. If you too think that this platform is worth supporting, then you too should consider becoming part of it. Details of how you can support are in the description of this video. In the meantime, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do so, because that's one of the many ways you can support independent journalism. God bless you all.